Okay, welcome, Dr. Shin. This is Group 11's appraisal report. I'm Walker, and the other three are Briar Tilton, Ryan Bailey, and Spencer Lyons. Um, so we picked a single-family home in Alpharetta, Georgia, which is a suburb just north of just north of Atlanta. Um, as you can see, it's ranch style, has a detached two-car garage. Completely remodeled, pretty modern on the inside. Lots of good, premium, expensive finishes. Large backyard as well. And so here's Briar to talk about how we got to our final appraised value.
Okay, through the four approaches, we were able to find that our value of our house would be $604,470. And we got the weights of this composed from 65% of the sales comparison approach, 25% from the cost approach, and then 5% from each of the income approaches. And we believe this is an accurate value, but the market can change due to unforeseen circumstances such as COVID or other things.
Okay, thanks, Briar. And yeah, obviously we'll go more in depth to all those approaches later in the presentation. So yeah, there's a sky view of the house. And here's Ryan to talk a little bit about some of the location.
Yeah, so I'll touch on this a little bit later as well, but here's the comparison home map that we put together. So as you can see, our property is northernmost of all of our comparables, and then our six properties just south of it. They're all located centrally in Alpharetta, and all very similar. So we'll kind of touch on a little bit later all the reasons why we chose those comparables. Here's the zoning map. Just broadly shows Alpharetta, as we talked about. It's a northern suburb of Atlanta in Fulton County, Georgia. And here's Spencer to talk about the market analysis.
Thank you, Ryan. So in completing the market analysis, we were using all statistical and available data to try and get a picture that would encompass the community that is Alpharetta, Georgia. And within that, we found demographics such as the local population of Alpharetta, age variation, and diversity statistics. Regarding the economical analysis, we found the median household income and rather low poverty rate. But beyond that, one thing to note is that the median salary was $20,000 higher for women, and the median salary for men was $40,000 higher than the national average, which is definitely interesting to a prospective buyer. Healthcare and education, we found data about hospitals nearby, and on top of that, we also found data pertaining to the fact that the high school attainment of a high school degree or higher in the nation is 88%, but in the city of Alpharetta, it is 96.7%, which is definitely another thing to consider.
Okay, thanks, Spencer. Ryan.
So for the criteria for our comparables, we chose 6 different points that we wanted to make sure that all of our comparables hits. The first was having 4 bedrooms. Thought that was crucial that all the properties had 4 bedrooms. The second was having at least 3 bathrooms. We had a little bit of wiggle room here. We have a few that have 3, some that have 3.5, and some that have 4. We want it to be a single family home. Obviously, we wanted to make sure it was in Alpharetta, Georgia, in the same MSA, the same general market. We chose a price range between $600,000 and $850,000, and we wanted the lot space, the acreage, to be close to or just under an acre. So I'll go through some of the comparables and how they differ. So our first comparable, the highlighted factor here in the property description is the age, which is 2019, which is quite a bit newer than our property. It's a newer property, but as you can see, the other descriptions are very similar. And then as we go to comparable 2, again, the one difference we had highlighted was the lot size. Our lot's much closer to 1 acre. This is just under 0.1 acres, so a little bit smaller. As we go to comparable 3, the descriptor that I have highlighted here is the 3 bath. So a little bit smaller than our property, but still a very comparable property. Comparable 4, a little bit smaller in the floor size, of square footage is slightly below our property, but again, very comparable. Lot 5, similar to lot 1 and 2, is both newer and slightly smaller than our property. And finally, for our comparable 6, again, a little bit newer and a little bit smaller than our property, but again, very comparable. So we come into our calculations on this comparison grid. One example I'll run you through to show you an example of our math. So when you go down to the adjusted square footage calculations, we calculated the average square dollar per square foot to be $243 per square foot. And then if you were to take, for example, the comparable one compared to our subject property, you can see that it's 683 square feet less than our property we chose. And as you can see, we calculated our average square footage to be $243 per square foot. So when you multiply those two numbers, the factor of 683 compared to $243 per square foot, you find there to be $165,000 in change of difference, which we subtracted from the value of the comparable one. And along with our other factors being the price per square foot, the adjusted baths, the square footage, the lot size, and so on, we can find a comparable price between the comparables we chose in our subject property. So now I'll move on, or I'll throw the ball over and we'll talk about our comparison sales adjustments.
Okay, and calculating our cost approach, we had to keep in mind the fact that we are evaluating the cost of rebuilding the house separately from evaluating the cost of land. And so we estimated through costofbuild.net that our replication cost would be $456,633. From there, we subtracted accrued depreciation of the property using an estimated useful life of 47. And from there, we got the depreciated cost of the building to be $214,631. And then we re-added the estimated value of the site, which is the value of the property or the land alone. And through those calculations, we had the indicated value to be $625,601.61.
Okay, thank you, Spencer. So now I will go into the income approach of direct capitalization. So I'll just walk you through the calculations real quick. We found through Zillow, we found the estimated monthly rent in the area of Alpharetta is about $7,500 a month, and the market cap rate of the area is 6.41%. To get the estimated annual maintenance, we found property taxes to be $3,700 annually, and added in $500 just for miscellaneous expenses throughout the year. So then in order to find the potential gross income, multiplied the estimated rent of the area by 12 to get the annual income, and then subtracted out the vacancy and collection costs of $906. That gives us our effective gross income, and then we took our estimated expenses for the year, multiply them by 12 to subtract that out, and finally divided that figure by the market cap rate to get an estimated cost of $606,459.
For the income approach, we decided that we would have a 10-year holding period, and then the NOI for each year was $38,874. And then our discount rate was 6.41%. And by dividing those two, we get the estimated sales price, which is $606,458. And then our cash flows are just NOI for the year. And then after you take all the present value of the cash flows, our final value is $351,551. And then next, I'll be speaking on the reconciliation of estimates. And so we found a good choice of comparables for our a house to compare them to. And so we decided the sales comparison approach would be weighted 65%. And the cost approach we also decided was relevant to our appraised home. So we decided that would also be 25%. But the two income approach methods we determined weren't very useful in deciding the value on our house, because they're more for like multi-family apartments, like condos or like commercial buildings, things that are going to be used to give income, when in reality, this house will most likely be used for a single family home. So we decided to just weigh them at 5%.
Okay, thanks, Briar. So finally, I'll just touch on the impact of COVID-19. So one thing is, as we found out in our market analysis, the area of Alpharetta is pretty strong, just as far as their average income, and their employment rate is pretty high. So there's an area that was less affected by kind of the economic downturn that COVID-19 brought us. Um, and so their markets in general were able to stay relatively stable. But on top of that, the big thing about COVID is it's driven the interest rates down significantly, which means it's a buyer's market, as far as real estate goes. So the um, the real estate market in Alpharetta has remained relatively strong, all throughout the pandemic, and it doesn't look like it's really gonna change anytime soon. As we touched on earlier, the market cap rate of 6.41%, and the real estate market in general has grown over 4% the past 2 years. So COVID obviously a big impact worldwide, but as far as the local real estate market of Alpharetta, not that significant. So Ryan, you want to maybe touch on some of the weaknesses, some of the things we could have done better on this presentation?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Walk. So one of the weaknesses that we wanted to address was the comparables. As Briar touched on, 65% of our weight was based on our sales comparison, but there's a reason that it wasn't 100%. It's very difficult to find perfectly comparable properties when doing an appraisal like this. And although we found some very similar properties, it was difficult to find unique properties that were single family owned and were separate from other properties. In Alpharetta, as it's an upcoming market, there's a lot of condominiums and townhomes that are connected housing that are priced more similarly to our subject property than a lot of other properties. So we didn't have an ideal market to find comparable properties as our property was renovated and is a unique property in the market. But although it wasn't ideal, we were able to factor that into our calculations, and we think that we still made a very fair assessment of the property in terms of its appraisal value. So now I'm going to throw the baton over to Spencer, and Spencer's going to touch on some of the strengths of our appraisal project.
Thank you, Ron. I think definitely one of the bigger strengths that we've had was, well, despite Ron touching on the fact that we did have some room for error in terms of the specifics of the calculations. However, we did very thorough research and triple checked each other's work to make sure that our calculations were accurate with the numbers that we were able to find online. And beyond that, we were searching to find the proper numbers online. Beyond that, we were very communicative as a group, and I believe that we did a very good job of research, divvying up and not distributing the work, but sharing the work amongst each other in terms of making it a group learning experience.
Yeah, so obviously this is just a recording, so there's no time for questions, but thank you for taking the time to listen to our presentation.